I remember when you wearing this right here, it meant something to be a Cowboy. It meant something to be a Cowboy fan. Jerry Jones, you done took that away from me. I used to be happy to be a Cowboy fan. Now I just want to put y'all in the trash. Why y'all didn't get Derrick Henry, man? We ain't got nobody to run the ball. Never win a championship, man. Putting all y'all trust in that. Why? Why? Man, them bought a house in Dallas. Now y'all gonna tell us some more lies. We gonna look for a running back in the draft. We gonna find that we ain't found shit in 30 years. We ain't found nothing in 30 years. Only thing we done found out that you got a secret dog. Year after year, man. Year after year, Jerry. I can't take it. Switching teams, y'all.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the One Star Cowboys podcast. This is episode 2 for us. We dropped our debut podcast earlier in the week. If you didn't hear that, go check it out on Apple and Spotify. You can also hop on Discord, where we've got a One Star podcast set up, where you can just hop on there and you can talk football with us. A lot of people have been sharing a lot of John Machota's videos from training camp and things like that. A lot of good discussion in there, and it's been fun. I'm Kevin Turner with John Machota, Saad Youssef, and Kent Garrison. And today we have, once again, John and Saad out in California, boots on the ground. John dropped a piece today, a 53-man roster projection to get all, man, I got everyone buzzing. We all have mutual friends, Jeff Kavanaugh. We all know him. Talked to him about it, and he was thrown off by one position in particular. So I can't wait to talk about this with you guys. How are you guys doing out there?
I am wonderful. The weather is beautiful. I'm happy to be here. Practices, maybe not as exciting as previous years. I think, as I said on the previous show, love to see CeeDee Lamb back out here for those video purposes. But other than that, really excited because they're about to have a practice with the Rams. And then they have a preseason game against the Rams. So we'll get to see some real football finally. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think the practices have been fun, but I think like the players always talk about, like, you know, it does get tiresome sometimes just going against the same guys over and over again. And there's a lot of, I guess, context needed, you know, to how to read into these practices. And I feel like some of that at least gets cleared up as, you know, joint practices happen and preseason games where, you know, the physicality limitations kind of get lifted a little bit. So I think that's going to be a big plus for us.
So before we get into kind of going through this position by position, last night was the media party. Did we have a couple guys in attendance?
Yeah, we were there, but I mean, I'd compare it to like these practices out here. I thought it was one of the weaker ones, to be honest with you. Obviously, it's Nobu, it's beautiful and all that, but there wasn't a lot of real newsy type stuff to come out of it. Nobody really got blackout drunk and embarrassed themselves.
No Jamie
that I know of. No Jamie Foxx. Heard a rumor that D.L. Hughley was there. I didn't see him.
Stop the presses.
I think you guys are familiar with his work from something along the lines of Kings of Comedy, one of my favorites. I'd say Troy Aikman was probably the biggest name. You know, Jerry Jones, Troy Aikman,
Andrew Whitworth I'd put up there, yeah. Brian Broaddus.
There's their number one right there.
Yeah, Stephen Jones. Trying to think, am I missing anybody? Noel Michaels this year.
Jerry Jones is the most famous person in like almost every room. Unless he's with a president, he's going to be the most rich and famous person there.
Is he a top 100 famous person?
He is so rich and famous that like going to a concert at AT&T Stadium is like a chore for him because he's so rich. Like for us, if we had the access he had, we'd be like, oh my God, I gotta go see Beyonce. For him, it's like, is it even worth his time? He's so rich that like, is Beyonce even worth his time? Like, I wish I had that problem.
Yeah, I think he's ridiculously highly rated in terms of probably sports famous, but in terms of famous in the entire world, I don't think he's top 100.
Just no way. For the sake of this, because I want to get more ears on it, because my good friend Mike Soroy had the idea that he thought Hulk Hogan was a clear top 100 famous person, like in America. And I kind of challenged him on that. And I'm like,
top 100? Top 100 in America?
Yeah, like right now.
Yeah, I think he is.
I think maybe worldwide. I mean, he's so iconic, like his look and everything. Like,
so Jerry's not on Hulk Hogan's level?
No,
I don't think so. No.
Yeah,
I don't think he is.
Yeah, I guess if there's people who don't like, not that there's many, but there are plenty of Americans who don't watch football. I don't know any, but there, there are some. I guess I could see where they wouldn't know who Jerry Jones was because you just the one thing.
Yeah, and John and I were actually talking about this a couple weeks ago. When we were talking about Simone Biles and how famous and recognizable she would be, and we kind of discussed that, like, it'd kind of be hard for any NFL really affiliated person to really crack that level because, again, it's such a national sport, and I don't know that, that it necessarily transcends globally the way that even a Michael Jordan did or something like that, I feel like, basketball and I feel like Shohei Ohtani, guys like that, just because of the global thing. But in football, even Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, it's a very American thing more than it is a global thing.
I remember one year Chris Myers was one of the special guests at the media party. And I was like,
he's been out there several times. Yeah.
I get it. Must just live there and somehow get tight with the Joneses back in the day. You made it.
And worked at Fox and the Cowboys have obviously a lot of games on Fox. So
absolutely. I thought Tom Brady should have been there. He's the number one guy on Fox now. He should be getting Cowboy intel.
I agree.
Have you guys seen a crew filming the Netflix thing for Jerry out there, or has that been wrapped up?
Yeah, I think that's wrapped up. That was more, last year, and then maybe a little bit into the draft this year. But since then, no, nothing like that. And
might be coming soon.
Yeah. And we certainly, it's just so obvious when there's other film crews out here. No, there's nothing like that out here right now.
And what a bummer that was going on. And they thought that was the year. And then, obviously it wasn't and ended terribly in the playoffs. I know that hurt Jerry. The loss gets him, but man, that too added on to it. Holy cow. A bad deal.
Honestly, I think the most notable thing that happened last night was actually away from the party that apparently there was a pretty big earthquake that was felt around these parts, and we kind of got a notification of that on our phones at the party, but I didn't really feel it that much. But yeah, I was talking to people outside of the Nobu circle, and people were like, yeah, that earthquake was legit. And so apparently there was an earthquake that hit here yesterday.
Yeah, I actually saw that on Twitter because I follow an earthquake tracker account. And there was a bunch of action going on. There's a town of Lamont, which might be near that area, and then Grapevine. But that I saw that you could feel the reported that people could feel it in LA. Been happening a lot here lately as well. Let's get to the roster projections. If you haven't checked out the piece, get over to The Athletic. John does this every year, but he laid this out, and I like that you lay this out before the preseason games because it gives you a little more intrigue on Sunday's game against the Rams. It makes you want to kind of lock in a little bit more and look at some of these bubble battles. And I even discussed this on my radio show over at 97.1 The Eagle because we had Jeff Kavanaugh call in. And John, let's start at quarterback here. This is just a projection. Is there any way before we start, actually, do you want to do any disclaimers or any type of pre-discussion things to lay out to talk about your methodology here?
No, let's do it live.
All right. Quarterback. 2 quarterbacks. 53-man roster. Cooper Rush looking for a job. Trey Lance, QB2. How'd you get there?
He's not QB2 off of what you watch. But I think it's going to be difficult for the Cowboys to part ways with him because they gave up that 4th round pick. And it just seems like a Cowboys thing to be honest with you. I don't like getting in the weeds on this because I'm going to do like 8 of these in the offseason, but it's like, would you be really surprised if they did something where there were 3 quarterbacks on the first 53 because then there were some other guys that they just added after, like they've done with CJ Goodwin? Like, I'm not sitting here saying that Cooper Rush won't be on the team or he has performed poorly or whatever. He's the better quarterback of the 2. But if they're going to only keep 2, which is completely possible just because of the fact of how tough it is going to be at some of these other position groups, then I think that the edge will go to Trey Lance just because of, like I said, they gave up that 4th round pick. And I think they feel pretty comfortable that they can still get Cooper Rush back on the roster even after they trim down. But no, I'm not sitting here saying that he's 2 because he's been great out here. I'm saying it because of them, what they gave up for him. A lot of the 53 trim downs come down to where was the guy drafted at? How did they acquire this player? That stuff matters. It's not necessarily, no, these are the 53 best players and they're on the team. That's not how it works. There's politics behind the scene and things like that. So my 53 at quarterback hasn't changed all off season, So is that the one Jeff had a problem with?
Well, it doesn't he had a problem with it. It's just he's like, I haven't even thought about that. Like, and that is going to be something to watch. Like, what if Trey Lance stinks it up in the preseason? But you would still go to, if you give up a 4th round pick, then if he's not QB2, what are we doing?
Yeah. Oh, looks awful in the preseason. Looks like he doesn't belong on an NFL team. Guess what? I get to do another 53-man roster projection and he won't be on the team. Yeah. But this is one before the preseason games start. So I'm going off of if they're cutting it down 53 today, I don't think that he's been awful enough for you to go, oh, yeah, no, he gave. But, oh, yeah, by all means. But then there's also the part of the Dak situation with this. And Dak didn't look great in training camp practices his rookie year. He really, up until I would say the last 4 or 5 years, it wasn't necessarily a guy that I thought was like, oh, yeah, he just blows you away in training camp practices. But where Dak separates himself is when he does get in those games, like when he got in those preseason games his rookie year. And he played great in the Coliseum against the Rams. He played great stepping in for Romo after he went down with the back injury in Seattle. That's what separated him. It wasn't that he was separating himself in these day-to-day battles with Jamil Showers. So that remains to be seen too. But yeah, believe me, if Trey Lance looks if Trey Lance looks terrible in these preseason games, then yeah, I can see them moving on. But he's going to get every benefit of the doubt.
What do you think, Saad?
Well, I think the biggest thing at play here is sunk cost fallacy, right? So it's like, when you're looking at it, it's just, you gave up a 4th round pick for him. And if you cut him, you're still on the books for $5.3 million because he's on that 4th year rookie deal that's fully guaranteed right there. So, it's just, how, like, do you have it's exactly what the 49ers did, to be honest, in reverse, where they didn't hold on for too long. They just kind of like the minute that they felt that they were done, and they just let it go. They didn't really tell themselves, well, we traded all these draft picks and everything up. Like, let's see this through. They're just like, hey, we see Brock Purdy's a better quarterback and we're going to go with it. So to John's point there, I think the tough position that the Cowboys are in is that Cooper Rush has the ceiling of an NFL backup, and he's a veteran. So there's really no changing that ceiling. And I think the ceiling is kind of what the question is on Trey Lance. And of course, the cloud hanging over all of this is Dak Prescott's contract situation. Because if Dak was signed for the next 4 years and Trey was not even, I mean, I don't know, like even if he was just average, but Cooper, you've seen, he's gone, 4-1, 5-1 as a starter. Then maybe you can be like, well, Dak's going to be here for the next 4 years anyways. Dak might be here for the next 4 years, 5 years, but we don't know that. And so now with Trey Lance's ceiling, you're like, well, let's kind of hold on and see. So I think where I'm kind of getting to it is that if there's a tie, I think tiebreaker goes to Trey Lance. But Trey is not at a point right now where there is a tie. He needs to work to get there.
And I'll even take it a little bit further than that. I don't even think it has to be a tie. It just has to be kind of close. And I think it's Trey Lance.
Yeah.
I also think I'll pose it to you this way, KT. if both are released and they're on the open market, who do you think gets claimed faster by another team? Cooper Rush or Trey Lance?
Trey Lance. I
just think that there's people out there. I do too. I just think there are people out there who'd be willing to kick the tires on, like, hey, man, because this is the thing about Trey Lance. This is the best way I can sum up his training camp practices. There's a lot of plays where you're like, oh, this is not even close to being a player that would you would trust starting a game and being their quarterback. Because keep in mind too, it's not like he's just still with the Niners. Like, he's in a new system. He's had to change up footwork, all these things like that, new receivers. So I don't know. The way I look at it is, I lost my train of thought, guys.
What happens if Trey Lance balls out in the preseason?
Oh, you know what? No. Thank you. That's what I was going to say. But there are some plays that he'll make where you'll go, oh, damn. He ended practice 2 days ago with this ball down the left sideline to Snoop Connor that I was like, damn. I mean, it was pretty, and he'll have those plays in there. And so because of that, I just think that's kind of teases you too as a coaching staff, that let's just kind of coach. Let's keep him going. Let's try and get more of that out of him, And the other thing that stands out too, and a lot of people have pointed this out on the videos I've posted, is that he has a tendency to stare down his receiver right from the snap. You know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as that he gets the ball, he's looking down to one player, and you kind of, which makes it great for these videos because you know where the ball's going, but it doesn't make it great for opposing defenses.
Yeah, and also I think one thing, I guess this player that I'm about to mention, I've only seen him from afar, so I don't know, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Geno Smith, of kind of what we saw with the Jets early on in his career, and then obviously he had a revival with the Seahawks, but it's kind of one of those things where you also see him, a lot of it is also just how he's processing the reads and all that kind of stuff, more than just the arm talent and stuff, because the arm talent is kind of unquestioned.
Yeah, he's like a guy who's had 500 pass attempts since high school. Yeah. This is like that established thing. And also he was hurt. We know that. New system, I think, is a good point. He said out there, like, footwork, a big thing. When you're focusing on those little things, it's almost like you're, I think back to these quarterbacks who have been taken and they got to sit for a year or 2 or 3. And they're like, yeah, well, we're working on these little things. And it's one step at a time. But in a league now where, 46 active players, 53 can make it. I think we'll see how healthy they can stay throughout the training camp. It'll never leave my head that this is the organization that had a kicker and a kickoffer. That's I was going to say kickoff specialist, but it's not as fun. Kickofer. I mean, they did carry that, so that'll it's not like they've done that in recent history, but it's just something to remember. It does feel like they'll carry 3 when the season starts, maybe, but the fact that you put 2, it's got some intrigue, and people out on the streets are talking about it, John. It's what you do. You
Good.
Needle.
Good.
Pot a little bit. Let's go to running backs. 4. Ezekiel, Rico, Royce, and Hunter Lipke. So, sorry, Malik Davis. Sorry, Deuce Vaughn. Tough.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn, if he's 100% and hadn't been overdoing the chords for most of training camp, I might feel a little bit differently about that and have him on the team. But if they can only go 4 at running back, and you go off of the way that the organization has recently talked about Royce Freeman and what he can do on special teams, and as that veteran, like number 3 back behind like a Rico and Zeke, it seems like they're counting on Royce Freeman to be on this team. And so if that's the case, your running back by committee cannot be that you're keeping 5 running backs, And so you got to cut it off at some point. So is there a chance that Deuce Vaughn makes this team still? Yeah, absolutely. There's a chance Malik Davis still makes the team, but they're going to have to probably perform pretty well in the preseason for me to change my thoughts on that, because Rico Dowdle, to me, looks like out of the guys on this roster, he's the favorite to lead the team in rushing. I think Zeke's your number 2 guy. And then after that, it's kind of up in the air. But I could see them having issues running the ball with just a 1-back set type thing. So that's where Hunter Lipke factors into. I think that they would like to use him in a little bit more than they have in the past. And I think he could fill in and maybe help your running game too. So I think it's a pretty good bet Lipke's on it. So then it leaves 1 open spot. So that's for Malik Davis, Snoop Connor, Deuce Vaughn, Nathaniel Pete. So I'm giving the edge to Freeman there.
Okay.
I think what's interesting also, and this is, I think I heard McCarthy say this since the last time we actually recorded the pod, because I know we talked about Lipke last time, and a common name that has always come up when talking Lipke is John Kuhn from McCarthy's days in Green Bay, but actually McCarthy talked about how they're asking him to do more tight end stuff, Lipke, this year. So maybe they're kind of evolving that type of player. Again, I think the fullback just generally evolves in different eras, and I think Kyle Juszczyk is kind of the guy now that you look at fullbacks and think that that's kind of who you want your fullback to be. So it'll be interesting, because I think Lipke profiles as this just like all-around type dude where he's fullback, but he can also he also factors in as a running back, but he's also like a tight end, but he's also playing a lot of special teams. And so I think he's kind of a do-it-all guy. And then I think you're talking about the other three, and I don't really have anything different to add than what John said.
But I think we had this conversation about Royce Freeman the other day a little bit. It's not piling on or anything, but when you have one of the worst running back rooms in the league, just from a talent standpoint, when you look at the Cowboys, you might go, man, that's near the bottom of the league in terms of what they have compared to these other teams. That's where I do look at, well, there's a fourth guy somewhere else. Is that better than your third guy? And that's where maybe you've said it before, John, maybe some guy who gets a lot of carries this year, maybe he's not on the roster, or at camp with them. Maybe that's
I wonder if
KT.
There's a college right now that's spending more money on their running backs than the Cowboys. With NIL and everything, it can be possible.
I think it's very possible. I did it. Wow, it's a research project.
And KT, to your point though, like you might put them at the bottom in the NFL in talent or how you like what they're doing on the field, but they're also near the bottom in investment at the running back position, which I think they're probably pretty happy about that, because they've kind of seen what that position has become. So I think it's a little bit of a trade-off of what you're doing on the payroll versus on the field.
I mean, it's easy for me to say, but that's where you want your fourth round pick, right? And then you have Dak and Cooper Rush. When we move on, we're not even worried about this thing. But Trey Lance is your starter in 3 years and he's great, then what are we talking about? So that's the fun of it all. Moving on to tight end 4, Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, John Stevens Jr., and Brevin Spanford. Sorry, Hendershot. It's been a tough go out there. Sorry, Princeton Fant, Alec Holler. Rough, tough days. So Schoonmaker, clearly a lock, being a second-round pick. He's back out there, right? Like, I know a few days, a little banged up.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the guys I want to watch in the preseason.
Yeah, for sure. It always seems like it's something else, So as of right now, I would count on seeing him, but that can always change. But yeah, he's a second-round pick. It's kind of the same thing with the Brevin Spanford. As he technically had a better training camp than Hendershot, I don't think you could say that. I don't know that it's worse, but they invested quite. I mean, he was their number one target after the draft and undrafted free agency. So I find it hard to believe that they're going to just move on from him unless he just looks poor in the preseason games. But Princeton Fant, you mentioned him. He is a guy that Mike McCarthy has talked highly of. I mean, he likes a lot of things that he's doing. So that's, this is a pretty good group. It's like Jake Ferguson's your clear one. And then after that, you can make arguments for a bunch of different guys, But I think 4 is kind of the sweet spot on that position. I don't think you go more than 4 at tight end, again, because of these other positions and where you are going to have to go a little bit longer in some. I just don't think you keep more than 4 tight ends. So yeah, somebody's going to be left out.
How high? Go ahead, Side.
Well, I was just going to say, I think Fant is the dark horse if you're looking for one, though, because McCarthy's talked a lot about him, and Dak has also talked a lot about him. Or not a lot, but he's mentioned him, I guess, more than you would a 4th or 5th tight end, in his media availability. So I think Fant is the dark horse. But other than that, I would say, those guys right there, those 4, that's who I would have my money on too, because John Stevens Jr. is a guy that, again, was on track to make the roster last year. And it's not like he's a major part of the game plan right now in practices. We're not seeing him out with the ones in the red zone or anything like that. But he also hasn't done anything for his stock to really drop that much. Peyton Hendershot, he kind of is what he is. He's not an old guy. They're all young, but man, I know it's only one play, but he had a brutal drop in practice a few days ago. And those kind of things, when you're in such a tight competition, those kind of things just kind of, stick out like a sore thumb sometimes.
Okay. And this is just to sound, because it's a good tight end group. As long as Jake Ferguson is equal to what he did last year, takes a little step forward. Because
he'd have to take a step forward, but I think that all signs point to that happening. But if they lost him to injury, I think it would, the group would be taking a step back. But I'm trying to think. It's not on the level of what the wide receivers would be without CeeDee Lamb, but it would. The group would take a pretty big hit there. They got big plans for Jake Ferguson this year, so
just a little exercise, a quick exercise, a little brain. I mean, tight ends. But thought you take over like Jake Ferguson. You're talking about this year. I know we can throw age into it and all that stuff.
Oh, and all of the NFL.
In the top half of the league? Does he end up in the top 16?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he's like a top 10. I guess you put him, if you're going to go off of like just the pass catching numbers and things like that, like almost the fantasy side of it, I bet you he puts up top 10 type numbers.
Yeah.
But
it's going to be the CD Ferguson show this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Ferguson's going to have a big year. As long as, health would be the only thing. But if he's healthy, I think he has a big year.
It's easy just because the draft in the same round and all that stuff, and you bring up Schultz just because he was the last guy. But Ferguson's always seemed a little more athletic. Just a little,
and a better blocker.
Little bit more, and I was like that. All right, let's move on to wide receiver.
But there's similar trust that Dak had in Dalton Schultz. He's built that, and he has that with Ferguson now too, and that's huge. So
yeah.
And also, by the way, he's not hurt right now. I'm just saying that. Injury is like the only thing that I can see. Everything else is,
No, absolutely. Always fun. We do this every year. Wide receiver. The end of the wide receiver room. We have 6 here on John's 53-man projection over at The Athletic. Go check that out. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, Jalen Brooks, and then Tyron Billy Johnson. How about that? Flournoy doesn't make it. He's been hurt though, right? So it's been tough. He's just now getting out there. So
yeah, he has been, and that kind of goes against my judgment on a lot of other positions. That's why it came down to those two. I just had Tyron Billy Johnson on because he is shown out up to this point in camp. He's pretty high on my list of players I want to watch in that practice and that preseason because he's done a lot of nice things. He's been on several different teams in the NFL. Maybe this finally is the spot where it clicks, but we just haven't seen anything from Flournoy. But Flournoy is a guy, 6th-round pick. I mean, that's an investment. Usually this team isn't going to move away from a 6th-round pick that quickly, but if they don't see anything from him and they're kind of like, you're not keeping 7 receivers, that doesn't make any sense to me. And to be honest with you, Flournoy wouldn't even be probably next for me if we're going off just the way that they've played. It'd probably be Jalen Cropper. He's really emerged the last few days, but this 6th-round pick part with Flournoy would be the one that keeps him on the bubble and maybe forces them to go in that direction. And so maybe then they would move on from Tyron Billy Johnson and Jalen Cropper. But I will say that group that I have, obviously CD's not out here. And then next after them, I would say would be Jalen Cropper, would probably be your next best receiver. And then heck, I mean, maybe even David Durden before you would get to Flournoy. We just haven't seen much of Flournoy, So
I think something with with the end of that depth chart that I think they'll have to consider is just who can you sneak through the league and get on the practice squad, and I think that'll play a role too. And then the other thing I think will be the second kickoff return man. Obviously Turpin's going to be one. It sure seems like Rico Dowdle is in position to be the second, but if for some reason Rico Dowdle becomes your top running back and you don't want him back there returning kicks for some reason, then are you looking at Jalen Brooks to go back there to return kicks? Is Tyron Billy Johnson that guy? Cropper, Flournoy, all those things you have to consider. To me, those are the two things that come into consideration for that number 6 spot is who can play special teams in that way, and also which guys are you looking at? If Tyron Billy Johnson, someone that's been on 7-8 teams, if it's going to be harder to sneak him past the radar of the rest of the league than Flournoy, then I think that's where you can kind of carry Flournoy back on your practice squad.
I think the CeeDee Lamb holdout's been good for Jalen Tolbert to kind of lock down.
It's been good for all of them.
Move forward.
It's honestly, it's been good for all of these guys. They've all had different moments. Tyron Billy Johnson has been the more consistent one throughout camp, but Jalen Cropper, the last few days, as John said, has been really good. Dak's gone to Turpin quite a few times. I wrote about this, and it's going to go up, Thursday morning, but I think there's a benefit to the benefit to Lamb not being there is this: everyone is facing one slot above on these defenses. Like Jalen Tolbert is going against a lot of Deron Bland, which he wouldn't usually go against Deron Bland.
Yeah.
So I think even and you kind of look at that. There's two sides to that coin where you're like, well, Bland's not going against a lot of CD, so when he does really good, you're like, well, grain of salt because Bland isn't going against CD or whatever. But for Tolbert, it's like, yeah, he's probably not going to go against he might not go against a whole lot of, Deron Blands and Trayvon Diggs, who, he hasn't been out there yet, but he might not have to go against a lot of those guys on game day in the season. If CD is out there, Brandon Cooks is, doing what he is expected to do. Tolbert might be getting, the number 3 corners on a lot of teams.
I do think, though, if the team's completely healthy, I do think Tolbert would see a decent amount of Bland. The only reason I say that is because you'd probably have Cooks on the inside, and Jordan Lewis would get him. And then if you got CD back, you got Trayvon Diggs back. But yeah, no, there's no question that it's good to see them. And I mean, obviously we'll get in the corners, but the other part is too, is just those corners have played really well outside. I mean, Diggs is just coming back right now. So they're getting good competition. No question.
Offensive line, definitely one of our big 3 concerns from the episode we did the other day here on the One Star Cowboys podcast. 10 on the offensive line, John. Zach Martin, of course. Tyler Smith, of course. Tyler Guyton, Terrence Steele, Brock Hoffman. And then you list Cooper Beebe, TJ Bass, Chuma Edoga, Asim Richards, and Nathan Thomas. That would leave out Let's Go and Josh Ball. Is 10 the number they usually carry? They usually carry 10 or 9 or 10?
Yeah, it's anywhere between 9 to 11, but yeah, usually right around 10. It pretty often it's right around there for offensive and defensive line, right around that 9 to 11 range. So yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is just those couple of younger guys like Nathan Thomas there at the end, over, like I said, Josh Ball, Matt Waletzko. If Matt Waletzko can stay healthy, I could see them, I could see he'd be the next guy on for sure. But he's dealt with just one injury after another and hasn't really ascended. Like, let's be honest, KT, like a lot of those mid-round Green Bay Packers offensive linemen did, when Mike McCarthy was the coach over there. And so if it's close, I think they go with the younger guys. And so that's what that one came down to. But yeah, I don't think that means for sure that, like I said, Ball and Waletzko are definitely out, but I don't think that either of them are locked in either. They would have to, 1, stay healthy, and 2, play well in the preseason. So, it's funny because when the Cowboys talk about the offensive line, they talk about how great the depth is and that, and it is better depth than it's been, but it still has a lot of question marks. You still don't know for sure how Tyler Guyton's going to look week 1. If I imagine he'll be the starting left tackle, but if by some chance you didn't really like the matchup, Myles Garrett, then you're bringing in Chuma Edoga, and it's like, yeah, that's better depth than you might have had in the past, but I don't think you feel great about any of those. You need Terrence Steele to play better than he did last year, and then you got a lot of question marks at center. Yeah, Hoffman and Beebe, there's a good chance that at least one of those guys is going to be a good center for you by the end of the year, but there could be some growing pains there as well too. So I just heard a little more talk than I expected about how great this offensive line depth is right now. When you look at the Cowboys offensive lines over the last decade, there's been a lot of really, maybe they don't have the greatest depth, but at the top, I mean, it's loaded and you don't have very many question marks as long as everyone stays healthy. Obviously that came into question because Tyron Smith, struggled to stay healthy, but yeah, the depth is better, but there's still a lot of question marks on the offensive line.
The one thing that I'll add to that is, Hoffman is a young player. And so for me, if he really does, and again, like John said, it's a question mark. It's not negative or positive. It's just an unknown. But if he does show out at center and becomes just a reliable center. Based on what I've heard, I wouldn't rule out Cooper Beebe even being the heir apparent to Zach Martin, and never really making fully that switch to center. I'm not saying that's like what the plan is or what the trajectory is going. I'm saying if Brock Hoffman, by how he plays and really takes over that center position and like is very good in this mystery, then I wouldn't be surprised if Cooper Beebe was seen as like, that next guy that takes over from Martin at guard. So, he could, I still think right now the plan is absolutely for Beebe to work at center and become that guy. I'm just saying that's something to watch out for in the long haul.
Yeah, because they also like TJ Bass to play guard if something was going to happen with Martin. But this at least with the Cooper Beebe thing, it gives you a full season to see what you got there at center. And if Zach decides when the season's over, hey, I'm calling it a career, you can go into the draft being like, do we think Beebe's the guy at center? Do we think he's better maybe being Zach's heir apparent? And then you can factor that in the draft too, on which way you go there to try and fill one of those spots if you don't, love what you got there. But the thing I keep thinking about Beebe is just that maybe he doesn't run away with the center job right away. I just think he's going to end up being a good player, wherever that is, right guard, center, whatever. Like, I think there's a lot of good there. So if he's not out on the field starting week 1, like, don't panic.
No, absolutely. And so in the world of, we've lived for so many years with Tyron too. It's like, and I realize we're talking about a different position, but you're looking for snaps too. I mean, you want to be good, productive snaps, but you didn't have to be a Pro Bowler at every, position like it was with Zach Martin. And you love that. But let's move to the vast wasteland that is the Cowboys defensive line at time. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marshawn Nealand, Osa Odigizua. And then we get to the question marks. We get 9 on this list. Mozzie Smith, Justin Rogers, Carl Davis, Chauncey Golston, and Viliami Fehoko. That would leave out, Darrell Johnston, Tyrus Wheat, Shaka Toney, some of these new guys that they have brought in. I mean, look, we know the 4, right? And I guess Mozzie makes it 5. And then from there, boy, I mean, are any of those guys locks? Justin Rogers, Carl Davis, maybe Chauncey's a lock because he was a high draft pick and he's here. I mean, it gets to slim pickings there pretty quick. That's why they're bringing in dudes, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And 9's thin, especially when you count Micah Parsons as a defensive lineman because he's going to play more linebacker. So I don't know. You want to quantify that as technically on my 53, I have 8.5 defensive linemen. That's thin. But I think where we are right now with the Sam Williams thing, for whoever I was going to keep, let's say as a 10th defensive lineman, just to meet up with numbers, I don't think whoever that 10th player would be that I left off would be making or breaking it. So I think that there's a decent chance that whether it's defensive tackle or defensive end or both, those are 2 key areas I could see them making a trade for somebody or really adding somebody when all the rest of the roster is trimmed down to 53. So I'm not settled on whoever that next defensive lineman would be, but they're looking, that they're listening, and they know that they need to replace. They need to do more than just go, hey, Marshawn Nealand's here. That replaces Sam Williams, because you also need to replace Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler. Those guys played snaps last year quite a bit, so I don't think, I guarantee you they'd love it if Shaka Toney ran away with it, or Tyrus Wheat, or Darrell Johnson. But I'm saying if they don't, that seems like a spot where they would possibly make a move for a veteran player, because they're going to need another edge rusher that they can count on. Because typically I would go, like, let's say if everybody was healthy going into the season, if Dan Quinn was still the defensive coordinator, you'd be like, oh, well, they got Micah Parsons, they got Sam Williams, they got Nealand and DeMarcus Lawrence. That's going to get the bulk of your edge snaps. But now that you're moving Micah off more, and then you don't have Sam Williams, you have a major hole there at defensive end that I don't know that they're just going to allow to rely on. Hey, whatever the best young guy is to come up and fill that spot, we're just going to go with that guy. I think they're going to have to be a little proactive on that. And I understand there's people listening to this going, why didn't they do anything in the offseason if they're going to be proactive about other positions? And that's a great argument. But I find it very hard to believe that Mike Zimmer is going to be like, yeah, no, we're fine with this. We don't need any help in the defensive line. There's only so much coaching and scheme changes can do.
Yeah, and I think the questions are at defensive end and defensive tackle because Mozzie is a lock in terms of a roster spot, but not in terms of how effective he's going to be. So I think that's a big question mark too. And when we were earlier talking about Trey Lance, I think that's another area where, if he does ball out and then you happen to have some sort of thing come up in terms of trade value, something, because again, you're not just looking to add guys. Look, Sam Williams went down and then they also added some guys. It's easy to add guys that have been cut, or it's easier to add guys that are on the street. But remember, those guys are on the street for a reason. And so that's usually because they're not really that top 4 caliber type guys on the defensive line. So if you're trying to actually make a splash, kind of like, I guess, of the Jonathan Hankins, even the Jonathan Hankins type.
Yeah.
If your third string quarterback kind of shows out, that could be something where they can explore that.
I doubt that happens though, because if you're talking by September 8th, Dak doesn't have a new contract and Trey Lance looks good in the preseason, I don't think there's any way Jerry trades him. I think Jerry will love having that on the team. And it'll be an annoying storyline for a lot of people, but it's going to be hard for Jerry to pass up on Lance if there's no new Dak contract. He's going to want Lance hanging around. He's going to want Lance hanging around the rim.
Yeah. Am I a jerk for going and looking up contract details for Linval Joseph, who signed with the Bills at the age of 35? I know I'm playing the Mike Zimmer card here, but
yeah.
I mean, a guy who was with him for all those years, it's like, man, that's kind of a guy that would be great to have. No long-term commitment, not a lot of money. Those are little things, though, where I sit there and go, well, what if that is the difference in you winning 9 games in 10 games? And that's the difference in you getting in the tournament and not getting in the tournament. Things like that bother me, because those are things that are like, well, if you would have just kind of tried a little bit there. But I know that's easy to say. And I think like anyone's been knocking down the doors to sign Linval Joseph, right? He's been bouncing around the league, right? So I'm not like, it's just like, there's one of those names. It's much like Hankins last year. Is not exciting, but you get him, you add him, and he helps. I go back to something which it's a little bit of a misnomer, but like, Jordan Love goes on Micah Parsons' podcast and talks about how, well, we knew we could run the ball. Now they got ahead in that game by throwing the ball, but he talks about that. And they got ahead and they ran it on in the second half. But still, it would have been nice if you could have stopped the run in the second half. And I just think a lot of Cowboys fans are worried about that. Way more than they're worried about who's going to rush the passer, with Sam Williams being gone. They're so worried about, are we just going to get pushed around in the run game? And I think it's a fair concern because, it didn't work out with Tristan Hill. It didn't work out with Neville Gallimore. It didn't. Who was it? By the way, different types of guys, the old school 3 tech. Mozzie Smith has a lot on him, because if it's not going well the first half of the season, the bust label is who he is, which is very unfair, but that's the NFL now. And that's how people work.
I don't think it's unfair.
Yeah, it's not unfair. And also,
you guys
hey, them not doing anything in the offseason, I could totally give them a pass on that if after training camp's over or right when the season starts, they make a couple moves. And when I say that, I mean, like, how they made the move, obviously, for Stephon Gilmore or Brandon Cooks. Like, if their plan all along was, well, we're not going to add anything because we want to see what we have with the young guys with, obviously, I'm talking about on the defensive side with a new defensive coordinator. Because I look at defensive tackle and I'm just constantly looking around like, are you serious? This is it? Like, this is going to be the upgrades that's going to stop the run in the middle? Like, really? This is what you get? So if their plan was all along like, well, no, we'll eventually add somebody. Let's just see what we got with the young guys, and we'll make a move if we need to add it. If they do something like that, then I can give them somewhat of a pass for not doing anything in the offseason. But if their defensive tackles are getting destroyed and they don't do anything and they're just kind of like, no, we just wanted to kind of see what we had there and we're just going to go through this season. That's inexcusable.
Yeah.
For me, their defensive tackle outlook is similar to how I view their running back outlook, except the defensive tackle position just matters a whole lot more than running back, and you really can't roll the dice on it the way you can at running back. But I think that's they have to do something, whether it's a trade or pick someone up on the market.
Moving to linebackers, 5, Eric Kendricks, DeMarvion Overshown, Damone Clark, Maris Lufau, and Willie Harvey. And this is pretty, as long as everyone stays healthy, doesn't feel like a lot's going to change here. And Micah will get linebacker snaps, technically. But this feels pretty locked in. Lufau, I don't know if a lot of people were thinking about him on draft night. How do you think is it more of a special teams year for the most part for him moving in, or are they going to use him in some different types of ways, you think?
They might use him a little bit in different types of ways if everybody stays healthy, but if everyone's healthy, it's Overshown and Kendricks that are going to be on the field the most. And if those guys are healthy all season, I think you can make the argument that linebacker is the most upgraded position they have on the roster from last year. Now, I know that's not saying a lot. They didn't really upgrade in many other positions, but linebacker is that one spot. If you have Overshown back from the injury, and then with what Eric Kendricks can bring, you should feel pretty good about that. And then Damone Clark looks like he's taken another step, so you feel like you have some good depth there. And then same thing with Maris Lufau. So then that would leave you with Willie Harvey. And I really don't think there's a huge debate. Whether you talk about Damian Wilson or Buddy Johnson, Brock Moggensen. Like, I think it's pretty cut with those like 4 or 5 guys right there, with Harvey would be the last one to make it out of that group. But yeah, if they all stay healthy, then yeah, I think they'd be thrilled that, Lufau plays just a little bit on defense, maybe in certain packages, but he's more of a guy that really contributes on special teams. But just hard to count on that because linebacker is just one of those positions. It's so difficult to stay healthy for a full season at that position,
Yeah, no, for sure.
The only one that I would add the only thing I would say is that Buddy Johnson could be a dark horse for Willie Harvey's spot if he just has like a tremendous preseason and things like that. He's somebody who's shown up and made some plays and hasn't always finished plays, but has made some plays, and it has special teams potential as well. So my 5 right now, if I was putting it out, would be the exact same. But Buddy Johnson is somebody that I'd keep an eye on just as preseason goes along.
Absolutely, that's what we want. Defense back 10: Trevon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, Eric Scott, Israel Mukuamu, Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Marquise Bell, and Wanye Thomas. Look, those are 4 safeties. And I think Mukuamu is maybe a question mark a little more, but kind of know what the safety position is on this team. And they can use him in multiple ways, it seems. But like Eric Scott, they're not going to give up on him this early. I mean, it feels like they're in great shape in secondary.
Yeah, no, this is a great group. And then they have Mike Zimmer, Al Harris coaching them. I mean, Kalen Carson is one of the biggest, I would say, surprises of training camp. I mean, he's exceeded expectations up to this point, and he's your number 4 corner. Jordan Lewis has had a strong camp. Deron Bland has had a really strong camp. And then you're going to get Trevon Diggs back. So you're outstanding there. And then you have to feel really good about Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson. The one question mark, I guess, would be that you should feel good about Marquise Bell and Wanye Thomas, but now they're moving back to safety from playing more linebacker last year. I don't see that being an issue, but yeah, those 10, you should feel really good about that across the board. I mean, that's definitely one of this team's strengths.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would want to see from the secondary a little bit more, I'd love to see Kalen Carson get some reps against the ones and see if he can carry that over, but I don't think that's really going to happen with Trevon coming back now and Deron Bland on the other side. But Carson has been really, really good against the twos, which is what you want at this point. I mean, look, he's a rookie. He's a 5th-round pick. The fact that he's even standing out among the twos is great. I would just be curious to see, like, if certain injuries or certain situations did come up, like how they would go about it. Jordan Lewis, for example, has had a really, really good camp. He had a really good day the other day. But if he was to get hurt, like, I'd be curious to see if they'd slide Deron Bland inside and play Carson outside, just because Carson's been comfortable outside and things like that, whereas Bland was playing inside. and we all know how the NFL lines up wide receivers. That doesn't mean Bland is being thrown onto like a number 3 receiver or something.
Sure.
So that's one thing that I'll be really interested to see, but we're not going to see that in training camp or the preseason. So, it's a moot point.
We know who our specialists are. We don't even have to talk about it. We're good. Brandon Aubrey.
They don't even have any others on the roster.
They don't have to worry about it.
They just made it easy on me.
In that regard.
Well, the one thing that will be interesting is just where CJ Goodwin can, where his, if he does have a roster spot, like,
sure.
Where that is going to come in, because I know that's somebody John Fossil really likes, and he's technically a cornerback, but if you're talking about like, Ezra Mukwamu's spot, for example, being kind of up in the air a little bit, that's probably a spot that could go to CJ Goodwin because Fossil really loves him.
Now, I did see on your piece, John, one of the first questions in the comments from a fellow named Sean is that I didn't see any mention of Nashawn Wright in your DB projection.
Yeah, he hasn't been very good.
Yeah, that's been getting out, right? That he hasn't had a very good camp. You know what? I could see him catching on with the Commanders in the future. And also it's very calming to have your specialists intact and you're good. It's not a storyline that we have to waste any time on. I'll tell you what, the team that knocked you out of the playoffs last year, they're having such problems. They brought in Jonathan Garibay, the worm. They brought him in for a tryout because they're looking to find anyone who can kick after they drafted Anders Carlson. Just interesting. It's very, very good. You got it set. Way to go. Way to go, Brandon Aubrey. We love you, buddy.
I like the Aubrey deal with just going with the one kicker because of previous camps I've covered when there's been more than one, when they didn't know for sure who the kicker was, how one of the storylines sometimes would be, well, we just don't want to put all the stress on the one kicker's leg. Well, no, if you have the kicker, you're just fine doing that. You just will have days where he doesn't practice, but when you don't know for sure the kicker that you have, that's when you have multiple ones in camp. And so, yeah, it's crazy how different that position is from 365 days ago. That's for sure.
I'm a little surprised, I guess, that not surprised. It's too soon to be surprised, but I really do feel like the Cowboys may have uncovered some sort of do more teams start going the MLS route and looking at, that because kickers are such a rare commodity. I wonder just with the lower leagues and with MLS in general, with soccer backgrounds, I do wonder if, you start going that route more than just college kickers and seeing that. It's too soon for that because this just happened a year ago. But if Aubrey has another fantastic season, now you have 2 really great seasons by the Dallas Cowboys kicker, and other teams struggling kickers have contracts that are expiring. That might be something where they start tapping into that.
I always wonder too, do you really are they at a shortage of players with strong legs, or are they at a shortage of guys that, can be at their best in the big moment? Because there's only so much that can happen out here in these camp practices to where you can know, Brandon Aubrey looks like he could be a guy or whatever. But then it's another to kick in big moments of games for a team that won 12 games and was in the playoffs, and he showed up and he was great every time that they called on him, And so because of that, I just don't know how much you can, project that from a guy that hasn't. I mean, let's be honest, there's some luck involved that they were able to hit, and Brandon Aubrey ended up being all-pro in his first year, But the mental side of the kicking, to me, it's got to be difficult to prove or to show, hey, no, I'll be ready for it. 100,000 game on the line. No, I'll be good, So, it will be interesting to see if they go that route more going forward. But I don't know. There's definitely some times there where sometimes luck plays a role.
Sure.
Hell, even if you remember, and we're talking the first week of pads. After the first week of pads, both kickers that they had, Aubrey and the other guy, they both had a pretty bad weekend.
Yeah.
And then the other guy got cut, and Aubrey was kind of just like, all right, we're just going to roll the dice. And so to your point, John, yeah, there's a lot of luck involved there, because it's not like it was like, oh yeah, Aubrey has shown enough and we are rolling with this guy. It was like, no, they both had a really bad weekend. It's just you felt better about Aubrey.
Has he been putting the ball in the landing zone?
Yes.
I'm ready for these kickoffs, baby. I'm pumped.
No. it's tough because they're not really showing a lot on that stuff, and they're not going to do it in the practice against the Rams, and they're not going to show a ton. So that's going to be a huge thing to watch for in week 1. I think we're going to see some wild, maybe not so much of putting the ball in the landing zone, but returners that teams choose to bring out that you're like, whoa, I didn't think that they would bring out this wide receiver, or who knows, a dual threat number 2 quarterback or something is out there on a return or something, that's going to be really interesting that first week or two, because I just don't get the sense that you're going to see these teams showing very much in the preseason, and they shouldn't.
KT, can I share my NFL hot take?
Yes,
that I have. Okay, I think by week 3 or 4, this new kickoff thing is kind of going to be, it's going to be old news, and I think we're just going to see teams maybe booming touchbacks. If there's too many returns going all the way, I just feel like some teams would just be like, you know what, it's 5 yards more than what it was last year. We're just gonna boom it out of the end zone.
I wish you'd give these kickers more credit, Sad.
Yeah.
There's going to be some of these kickers that they're going to try and do the whole landing zone, or they're going to try and kick it low, because now that, there's a chance that you can recover it. It's going to be interesting, because it's not going to be just like, I don't think, at least, just one guy back there. You're going to have 2 guys back there, and I think teams are going to try different things to try and, get a turnover or pin a team deep. And so I agree with you, and I do think the majority of that will happen, but I still think out of, every week there's going to be a handful of plays that are going to be highlights, that you're going to see where you're like, wow, I can't believe that they did that, or, we never would have thought they would have tried this thing.
I also think,
and this is something John and I were talking about on the way out of practice one time, and I really agree with this, that, growing up for us in Madden and stuff, you always had the coffin corner punt and things like that. I think the new version of that is going to be, if kickers can somehow find a way to line drive this thing and skip it into the landing zone and out of the end zone, I think that will be, because that puts the ball at the 20 if you're able to do that. Again, not booming it out of the end zone without a bounce puts it at the 30, but if you can skip it out of the landing zone, that might be interesting. I just feel like with 2 returners back there, it's going to be pretty hard to do. You're going to have a very precise kicker with a lot of power who's able to like skip the rock through the lake type of situation. But there is a lot of interesting things that could happen with this.
This is the most extreme rule change that I can remember. There's been a lot of rule changes, but this is the most extreme one that I can remember. And I honestly think one of the least hyped up rule changes. I don't feel like, and it might be different as you guys are out there talking.
So wait, hold on. You think this will have more impact than moving back to extra points?
Well, I don't know that impact, but I just think I'm thinking of when my dad turns on the first football game of the year, or the weekend. That was the preseason game on, and he goes, "What are they doing?" Because he had like the people who haven't aren't locked in and cover this thing 24/7.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go, huh? It's like the time Thursday Night Football showed up on Amazon Prime out of nowhere, and everyone's going, I got to download what? And it just on Channel 8. I don't understand. I think it's going to be a lot of that. I think you're going to see a lot of people going, I don't know, back in my, they ran all the way across the field, especially if it's like a conditioning exercise. I put them there. I think it's going to freak some people out for a bit.
I disagree. I think they're going to be over-explaining it so much for like the first 6 weeks, or be like, in case you didn't know, this new kickoff rule. Hey, run the graphics package on the new kickoff rule. And we're like, we know. Gosh.
Different parts of the field will be highlighted.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll know in September.
Let's take it down. Let's go down to the sideline where she's going to explain, Yeah.
I think right now it's not being talked up enough, though. Oh, we'll see. I'm looking forward to automated first down. We got too many people on the sidelines. People chain gang. Get on out of there. We have computers now. Automated first down. That's in discussion. This is good. The onside
RIP index card.
Like you can't do a secret onside kick anymore. That freaks me out a little bit. I don't know if I like that. You can't do an onside kick if you're winning. What? Like they're changing football.
What if something about these new rules just really unleashes Cavante Turpin? And the only reason I say it is because John Fossil was so involved in the rule change. that they just come up with. He's just got like all these different plans of the way to use Turpin, and he returns like 8 kicks for touchdowns, and the next highest guy has like 3.
I'm one of those guys who's probably not as fair to Bones as I should be. He's like an awesome guy, by the way, too. But I'm always
phenomenal human being.
I always kind of go, does he have a little too much say? I've always thought that, and maybe it goes back to a failed fake punt from 2 years ago that you just can't let go. Maybe it's one of those things because we should celebrate it if it works. But then I'm like, okay, we're doing this thing. It's good to have Bones in your corner. I wouldn't want some other special teams coach who I can't name. You know,
if I need a watermelon kick, I'm going to him.
Yeah. Yes.
If I need a good conversation just to liven up my day a little bit, I'm going to him too.
Yeah,
so
for sure. like I've said to Saad, he is somebody you'd want to be your next door neighbor.
Oh,
just
wow.
a good man. Yeah, oh yeah, he's a good dude. He's one of the best human beings that I feel like I've ever met. That, you know, I don't like putting anybody in the same group as like family and friends because you really don't know these. But in terms of covering sports, I can't think of one human being I've been around that I would say is better than Bones. Maybe you're on the level of, but I don't know that there's anyone that'd be like, oh, that's that person right there is a better person than John Fowler. He's just a really good guy. He would be number one on my list of like, you know, when people talk about something happens with somebody and they're like, I can't believe that person would do that. Like, he doesn't seem like that type of Bones would be the one right there. If there was anything shocking that ever came out about him, I'd be like, wow, I really read the room wrong on that one, because he is genuinely, like, I've never seen him in a bad mood, never seen him have a bad day, never seen him blow anybody off and not want to talk to them. Like, it doesn't matter. And let's not act like there aren't some really annoying people in our business. And he is as nice to every single one equally.
Great. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to get some Bones in my life. Are you guys wearing pads after the joint practice? Get that? Because there's going to
be fights. It's going to be
conflict.
Fun.
Could be a little conflict.
Yeah.
Cowboys Rams on Sunday, and we will catch up with you early next week on the next episode of the One Star Cowboys podcast. We want you to like, subscribe, follow, do all those things. I know what I just said sounds generic, but it is the way the business works. So like, follow, subscribe. We're relatively new. Maybe you know us. We were the same cast from the About Them Cowboys podcast in the past. But like, follow, subscribe. The podcast will be on Apple, Spotify. If you missed the one we did the other day, we are going to be having a lot more content coming at you in a lot of different ways. So make sure that you stay with us and you get those notifications and know when we're having another episode coming out, because we got a lot planned and it'll be way more regular, like clockwork, once we get to the regular season. But we've got John and Stott out in California doing what they do. At Kent back home producing this bad boy. It's going to be a fun time on the One Star Cowboys podcast. Make sure you're following John and Sod, both at The Athletic, and Sod does some work over at The Ticket here in DFW, one of our heritage radio stations in all the land. So make sure you check all that out. Follow them on social media. And we will see you next time to kind of break down what happened in the first preseason game against the Rams on the next episode of the One Star Cowboys podcast.
We ain't found nothing in 30 years. Only thing we gonna find out that you got a secret dog.